On today's show, the San Diego Padres kickstart their series against the Pittsburgh Pirates in extremely mellow fashion with a rain delay to kick things off, so it resulted in a Padres bullpen game. But of course they won, so we're going to recap that, the biggest showcase, dare I say, of the potential of this Padres bullpen that we've seen yet. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, August 7th. As always, I'm your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or at LO_Padres for only tweets on the Padres and updates on the show. Go check out my baseball work over at justbaseball.com, a fantastic website that I'm currently wearing the hoodie for, because why not? And you can go check that out. I recently wrote about Matt Waldron, dived a little bit into his numbers, and actually wrote more advanced stats than I'm used to writing, at least a little bit more advanced stats than I'm used to writing, so go check that out, everybody. In today's episode, we are recapping the first game of this series that frankly was not all that interesting in a lot of ways. It wasn't an exciting game, but I don't care right now. We don't need excitement, all right? I'll save the excitement for the playoffs if the Padres make it, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? That's when, sports aren't even fun when you're following your team in the playoffs. Let's be real, guys. It's not that fun because there's so much stress. So it's kind of fun to have a non-stressful series, I guess, as of right now. But before we do that, guys, let me just tell you today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Folks, it didn't start off great last night, the Padres defeating, though, the Pittsburgh Pirates by a score of 6-0, and it was kind of expected that they would win this one, right? That, in fairness, it was expected. Dylan Cease getting the start, but instead, some people might accuse the Pirates of some chicanery that went on here. Dylan Cease only appears for one inning. He does do well, only allows one hit, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts, really, really good stuff. Continuing technically his torrid stretch that he's had of late, so his ERA is still like 0.2 over his last 5 starts, so we love to see that. But instead, there was a bit of a rain delay that occurs in this game, unfortunately, and as a result, it lasted long enough that they had to pull Cease, and instead, they had to reset that and all that, and he was unable to pitch, and that was really, really unfortunate. And what was also interesting is that it took a while for the rain to not necessarily end and subside, but for them to fix the ballpark. As it was reported by Bob Scanlon, players are looking at this giant warning track mud puddle and shaking their heads, not close to having a playable situation. This is getting, looking like we may need to postpone it. Of course it was not postponed, but for some reason the water drainage or whatever wasn't working. It was very odd, like the dirt clogged up the water drainage. I don't know how that's the case if you're a park in Pennsylvania. It's not like you're in California or something like that, or in some place that doesn't rain all that often. It's very, very weird for you not to be prepared for that. It's like going to Chicago and they don't have extra, heating conditioners and stuff like that. Like, that place is cold as heck. So that was really weird. Is it lame? Yeah, I think it's pretty lame. I think it's pretty lame that it was very clear that we were heading for some sort of rain delay, because there was it was broadcasted and expected. I believe I saw it was 75%, 80% chance of rain, or I think it was higher than that. I forgot exactly. I don't have AccuWeather on me at the moment, but I saw some people tweeting about it and commenting this is extremely lame of them, because it's not like they have one of their best starters, and instead we have Dylan Cease, who's been on absolute, an amazing stretch lately, just been on a rampage. My only response would be I don't know. I just feel like teams don't do this all that often. I just don't feel like many teams have done something like this before, where they're going to intentionally not call the game just so Dylan Cease can go out there so they can't use him again. That's a little bit weird. But I understand it. And it is really, really annoying, especially since the Pirates, for them, they had a starter in, let me pull him up really quickly, and Bailey Falter, who's whatever. he's like a fine whatever pitcher that can give you some quality innings every now and then, but he's no Dylan Cease. So I understand the frustration with that. And frankly, I approve of it because why not? We need something to get mad at, and it's fun to get mad at things because then it motivates you, and hopefully it motivated the team, as I think it did, which was great. I am curious to see what happens with Cease going forward. He only pitched an inning, so I'm kind of curious if they might just give him like a couple days off. Maybe it was announced that Joe Musgrove is expected to start this weekend. They're deciding on the game, right? We don't know exactly which game he's going to start, but he will be returning against Miami this weekend. Great team for him to return against, by the way. So maybe depending on when he's ready, they might put Cease in that spot. Maybe it's going to be the Saturday game, maybe the Sunday game. I don't know. But after just one inning, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Padres utilize Cease a little bit sooner. Maybe instead of the 5-day break, maybe it's like a 4-day break. So I don't know exactly, but I will say they don't have to plan in terms of, hey, let's save Cease for some, big time series, because they play Pittsburgh, then they play Miami, then they play Pittsburgh, then they play Colorado. So me personally, I would want to save Cease for Colorado, but Colorado isn't for another 3 series. So that's my thing. I don't think there's any like strategic kind of maneuver to do here, but I'm curious to see where Cease ends up going. But the good news is, despite losing Cease for that start, not being able to utilize him, Joe Musgrove, like I said, is going to be back this coming by way of, I think it was Dennis Lynn at the Athletic I first saw report it, but Kevin Acey said Joe Musgrove will start for the Padres this weekend in Miami. Day has not been determined. He has not started since May 26th due to elbow issues. Hey, that's a big time hope. We got to hope that he's good. We got to hope that he's back. We got to hope that he's healthy. And I'm somewhat confident that I'm optimistic, I should say, that he'll be healthy, because why wouldn't the Padres trade for a bit more interesting of a starter? I understand that the prices were going out of control at the deadline, but it just makes me wonder, what were you doing exactly? Or they just really like Martin Perez. Maybe that's another thing too. But let's talk about this game, of course, guys. And there wasn't too much to talk about, but I do want to mention a couple things. First of all, I have been very critical of the Padres bullpen, and there was a point in this game where I was about to talk some smack. I really was. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I had a tweet in the drafts. It is later on in the game when Jason Adam makes an appearance and gets the bases loaded. Obviously, they bring in Tanner Scott. He finishes things off, but I'm just saying, it's just really funny that I was prepared to be a petty mofo and be like, see, this is why I don't trust relievers, and look at this, and instead goes against my whole thing. I think that yesterday was a great showcase into the Padres' potential, and that is a team that, even if their starter doesn't particularly go off, let's say it's one of those Waldron starts, maybe he goes 4 innings, gives up 3 earned runs, whatever, you just have this confidence that you don't have to see an Enyel De Los Santos in the high leverage situations, like I just mentioned with the bases loaded with Jason Adam, right? You don't have that situation arising now, and that's a huge deal. Seriously, that matters, especially come playoff time when it's going to be every inning practically, in my opinion, feels like high leverage, right? So that's going to be interesting, and I think that's a very good sign. Brian Hoeing was one of the stars of this game. 3 2/3, only allowing 1 hit, 1 walk, no earned runs, 3 strikeouts. Hoeing was one of the guys that was acquired in the trade for Tanner Scott that made me wonder, maybe that's why they had to give up another prospect, is because Hoeing is okay, and maybe they see something in him, right? Obviously, he's not the headliner of the deal. Tanner Scott is the superstar closer. I get that. But for Brian Hoeing, this guy, he has a 2.34 ERA, 3.11 FIP. His expected ERA is weird at 5.54, so I don't understand exactly how his FIP and xFIP numbers are really good, but his expected ERA is higher. But one thing I like about him is he just seems to generate decently, soft contact, lower home run fly ball rate this year, and I don't necessarily know if that means that it's going to go up, but we'll see. And he does really well here. The fact that he's the 7th best reliever, I mean, I'm exaggerating, in this bullpen is a really good sign, because he's at minimum as good as, Enyel De Los Santos. He's better than that guy right now. He's better than a Wandy Peralta. I don't know what's going to happen with Wandy Peralta, by the way, but really good stuff from the Padres. We'll keep talking about it in just a second, guys, but first, I want to take just a minute to talk to you about something very lovely, and that is our friends over at Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app out there, folks, with more than 5 million active members. You just have to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, and you can watch those winnings roll in. You can watch as you turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on those stat projections. That's right. They even got it for Team USA on all those different sports, so it doesn't have to just be baseball. They got you covered all over the place, man. That's what we love about Prize Picks. And if you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has you covered every week. For example, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Remember, everybody, that is code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match on Prize Picks up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And just like that, everybody, we are thriving and vibing back into this episode of Locked On Padres, your team every day. Hope everybody is doing well. Remember to send me some of your questions and comments over at Javapeno on Twitter, JAVIIPENO, or the YouTube, or wherever. You guys know at this point, everybody's been sending me comments because sometimes I just read them from the YouTube, you know, because I love it when you guys send me comments on there. It's really, 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 really great. Really, really great. I really appreciate that, guys. Maybe we'll answer some comments tomorrow, actually. We'll see. In terms of the rest of the game, though, aside from Brian Hoeing, you make an appearance from, or get an appearance from Mr. Adrian Morejon. 1 inning, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Good for him. He had a little bit of a rough outing recently against the Rockies, in which it felt like he was going to blow the game, but it's all good. And he was also not great in that Baltimore series. Granted, it was Baltimore, but look, I think with Morejon, I still stand by my opinion that I just don't know how I feel about him in high leverage. But that's the beauty of the trade deadline, in fairness, is that they got a lot of high leverage arms. You got Jason Adam, you got Brian Hoeing, and especially you got Tanner Scott. So instead, Morejon is the type of guy that you can bring him in as that aforementioned Waldron start, the theoretical Waldron start where he gives up 3 runs and only lasts 4 innings, whatever. You could bring in Adrian Morejon, and honestly, he's the type of guy that if they needed to, if any injuries were to happen, it wouldn't surprise me if they could stretch him for more than an inning. But what I love is they don't have to. Right? Morejon is just in such a position to succeed. And the same thing goes for Yuki Matsui, who you didn't see, by the way. And it's funny. I get some like tweets that come across my timeline that people just cannot stand Yuki Matsui sometimes. I know my mom personally does not trust him whatsoever. And I get that. He's not great in high leverage situations. But when he's able to locate that splitter and when he's able to elevate his pitches more, he seems to do better, and it's more of just a him thing, just better control. What I love about Matsui the most is it's not like people are hitting his stuff. And I know this is a little bit of a tangent and not related to yesterday's game, but hear me out, guys. We're only recapping yesterday's game. I got to stretch out this podcast somehow and entertain you. But no, in all seriousness, like, that's what I like about him. I like that no one's really hitting his stuff. So this tells me Yuki Matsui might be someone that is a riser for next year. I would not be surprised by that. Bottom line, expected ERA, he's in the 88th percentile. Expected batting average, he's in the 86th percentile. Whiff rate, 87th percentile. It's just control with him, and that's basically it. Would I like if he could generate some more ground balls when he throws lower in the strike zone? Yes, but unfortunately he isn't right now, which tells me he's got to elevate. But all of his pitches, check this out, guys, all of his pitches, except for his sweeper, which he only throws, a little bit. He's only thrown 54 of them all year. Expected, his batting average against four-seam fastballs is only 203. Expected of 217. Split finger, 196. Slider, 200. Sweeper, 167. Like, his stuff is good. So if he can just work on things, if Ruben Niebla, our pitching coach master, can master things, I'm telling you guys, this dude would not surprise me if he's the second best guy in this bullpen behind a Robert Suarez. And frankly, I could see him, even if some things were to bounce the right way, I could even see him being like the closer next year at some point. Now, he won't be. I'm just saying if anything were to happen to Suarez, I could see him as next man up. It could also be Estrada. But frankly, I like that I just think that them putting him in a position to succeed where he's not in high leverage at the moment and he can just work more on his mechanics, because I think we've noticed that he does walk some batters a little bit more in those high leverage situations. So I think that's really good. And they didn't even have to use him last night. Jason Adam, I already mentioned him. He does let things get a little bit out of control, but thankfully Tanner Scott comes in, pumps himself up, gets the big strikeout, also goes another inning after that, not allowing any runs. And then Jeremiah Estrada shuts the door. 1 inning, no hits, no walks, no runs, 3 Ks. Love that from our guy. Although Estrada, I think Estrada's potential is like one of the highest in the bullpen, but he can be a little bit shaky. I mean, we did see against Colorado, right? Completely exploded in that Friday night game, 3 earned runs and just getting 2 outs. That wasn't great. But overall, Estrada's stuff, his potential, really, really good stuff, man. So that's it for the bullpen. Let's talk a little bit about the offense for the Padres in this game. Jurickson Profar continuing to be a god, 2 for 4 with a double in this game. It's just incredible. It's incredible. Donovan Solano, though, is the hero of this game, driving in 4 RBIs. He goes 4 for 5, all singles, just a hitter's hitter, man, and you love to see it. I freaking love this guy, man. And I actually think I'm going to continue the bit the same way I continued the Campizano high for so long. I'm going to tweet out every single time when Donovan Solano has a big hit, because he always does, right? Did he get a little bit lucky in terms of the hard hit rate? Sure. But he did hit 2 balls, 103 and 100 miles per hour off the bat, and the expected batting average on all of them were really good. He knows how to place the ball. He's a rise with walks. I'm telling you, that's what Donovan Solano is, and he's not nearly... Now, Arise's potential, we've seen, is better, I think, than a... what's his face? I'm blanking, guys. Give me a second. It is a little bit higher than a Donovan Solano, but for me, I just see this guy, and it's unbelievable that he was left on the waiver wire, on free agency, and they could just pick him up. He had never shown any signs of decline. Solano's been awesome. The guy just hits. He just hits. And the fact that he's a guy that you can go to and kind of put all over the lineup, by the way. They've had him bat in multiple different positions this year, which is kind of like my favorite part about him, that he could kind of fit like any role they need him to. 131 WRC plus on the year is absurd. And if I'm not mistaken, every single player in the Padres lineup officially has a WRC plus over 100, at least in terms of their main go-to starting lineup. I love that, man. I love that. And yeah, like I said, he's had a bunch of at-bats going second, fifth, sixth. He's even batted fourth a couple times. I just love that he's good in every position. But love that the Padres offense just doesn't have a weak link. That's why it's so good. It's not necessarily good because they have a litany of superstars, although that is true. What's funny is that their biggest superstar this year has been Jurickson Profar. Instead, it's Jack Samaro, 115 WRC+. A little bit of a slump for him, though. Ha-Seong Kim is the only one who hasn't been great. And speaking of Kim, he was scratched from the lineup yesterday, unfortunately. Now, it doesn't seem like it's a big issue, but I kind of don't mind them just giving him some days off, maybe recuperating, because like I said, his offense has been bad lately. He's at a 97 WRC+ this year, and I don't think that it's a question of luck necessarily. That's not what I'm seeing here, although does have a low BABIP, 246 BABIP compared to 306 last year and 290 the year before, so maybe he's due for a little bit of a bounce back. But all in all, give him a little bit of a break, and I like that you still have some decent defenders. If you have to move Xander Bogaerts around, that's fine. You could put him at shortstop. That's totally cool. You can move Jay Cronenworth to second base. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. For those wondering, though, Tyler Wade was the shortstop yesterday. 2 for 3 in this game with an RBI, by the way, and he also had a stolen base. He had a really lucky RBI, I will say. He does get off of an error by the center fielder. Ji-Won Bae, I believe is his name, completely drops the ball, so whatever. Tyler Wade's just a chaos agent. He really is, right? He's just a chaos agent. I still like him as a guy off the bench for his speed alone. And honestly, I think he could play short at least a little bit for a few days. So I like Tyler Wade as a bench option. Bryce Johnson's kind of the biggest weak link in this Padres lineup right now. But, that's basically it for last night. Xander Bogaerts does get a RBI in this one. Love to see that. And it was a reach, by the way. Reached out over the plate and just, really great contact skills shown off from Xander Bogaerts there. Absolutely love to see it, especially for a guy who we know has been struggling so much this year. So for him to do that from the pitch that he actually hit it on, really, really impressive. We love you, Mr. Xander. You've been doing a lot better. But really, today's hero was Donovan Solano. And then also Luis Campizano, 2 for 4 in this game. And then also, let me just mention, our guy Manny Machado, bad game for our guy. Hopefully he got it out of his system. 2 double plays, not great. You don't like to see it, but also got a little bit unlucky. He had a line out that was expected batting average of 620. So not everything was his fault, but overall, not a great game for him, but still, it cannot be emphasized enough how good this guy has been after those first 2 months. I'm just going to repeat again. In April, he had an OPS of 633, May 610. Ever since then, June, OPS of 904, and OPS in July of 827, and so far through August, an 1100 OPS across 4 games. Machado's back. Not 100% certain Xander Bogaerts is back, but man, we love to see it, guys. And you know what else I love to see? I love to see folks that are here to keep you hydrated during these summer months, man. Let me tell you, it's important to stay hydrated. You need it. You absolutely need it. It's very, very important. And Liquid IV is here to help you with such importance. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor. A surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Whatever you need it for. During a workout, long flights, hot days at the beach, outside, wherever you're going, because Lord knows it be hot out here sometimes. Whatever you need, they have you. Blast off with the iconic summer flavors of Popsicle Firecracker, a festival blend of citrus-fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. And find all your other favorite flavors on their site, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada. So go check that out, guys. Tear it up this summer. Rip these things open and just pour it in your water bottle, and you're kind of there to go. It's really, really great. Powered by LIV Hydra Science, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water that you just poured your bad boy into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. That's right, 3 times. 8 essential nutrients and vitamins. They got you covered, man. Liquid IV ain't no joke. So go check it out, guys. No more thirsty summers when you indulge with hydration and Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing, of course, into this third segment, which we're just going to talk about a multitude of things. Not going to lie, there wasn't too much to talk about from this game. Let's just be real, right? It was a bullpen show masterclass, and then we got some big time hitting from Donovan Solano. Look, here's the thing. Let's look at the wild card, man. Let's look at the wild card race. It's a little bit weird. Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, Machado had a bad game, but he did have a highlight reel play that if you missed it, go look it up. Down the third baseline, out of bounds, throwing that ball underhanded, right on the money to nail the runner. Genuinely one of the best plays that Manny Machado has made this year, and perhaps one of the best defensive plays that anyone has made on the Padres this year. That's not saying too much. As I've mentioned before, the Padres have not been very good defensively this year, at least especially compared to last year. It's been one of the more troubling, just weird things. And again, why I always like saying on this podcast that defense is not a lock. Everyone always talks about how offense and players might not be able to replicate their same production from the year before. I think defense is the same thing. It's not a lock. I really do stand by that. I'm just not with it. In terms of total team stats this year, and I know we're going down a tangent again, as a team, the Padres, when it comes to defensive runs saved this year, rank all the way at 24th with -10. And then in terms of outs above average, which is the stat just, where the ball is hit, how many players on average are able to make that play, obviously they are 22nd in Major League Baseball with -8 outs above average. So while we were just talking about Ha-Seong Kim before, and while I've talked about how I'm okay with letting him go in free agency, he's kind of been the most reliable defender for this team. Yes, you still have, a Kyle Higashioka, and yes, in theory, you have a Tatis, and you still have Manny Machado, but for the most part, they just haven't played all that well. And like I said, Tatis wasn't, adding too much defensively before. I think it was a little bit fluky. I think he's still fine, but he wasn't incredible there, not making the same platinum glove level plays that he was last year. So really, really weird that the Padres defense hasn't been good this year. But I will say, if you want to be one of those jerks, maybe this is a sign that this team being so much better, maybe it's a sign that defense is a little bit overrated sometimes, just a little bit. I think it's more that if your team doesn't have the best offensive players, then obviously the defense is going to be able to carry you more. If you're like a Seattle Mariners type of team that's winning really close games and all that. If you're a Pittsburgh Pirates type of team, who, by the way, for those wondering, they rank Let's see here. Where are you at, Pittsburgh? I can't even see Pittsburgh. They're not even on the dang list. They're 25th in outs above average, so it's not like they've been great. That's part of the reason why I don't think that they're going to be a wild card trouble, by the way. Speaking of which, right now, the Padres are currently in first for the wild card race at 62 wins. They are 4 games behind the Dodgers, who unfortunately have been winning ever since we, beat their butts. They beat the A's, and they also beat the Phillies. They have the rubber game in today's match. So hopefully if the Padres are able to win, you could make up some ground on them if you want. Then the Diamondbacks and the Braves for those last 2 wildcard spots. I don't think the Braves are going to get it. I don't think they're going to get it. I know they made the interesting splash for Jorge Soler, but frankly, that team is just not good. They have extreme 2023 Padres vibes where like so much has gone wrong with their offense and so many players have underperformed. All they have is Marcell Ozuna in terms of a guy who's lived up to expectations. And it's a little bit reminiscent of last year where Juan Soto was the only batter really that lived up to expectations when it came to offense, right? So they're kind of in a position where I don't really think that they're going to get much better. I know they have Chris Sale. I know their pitching's okay, but I don't see it, man. So that leaves the Mets and the Cardinals. I would prefer the Mets because I'm on the East Coast, and frankly, it'd be fun to just, I don't know, go to a bar with some Mets friend of mine and just be happy for them, unless they're playing the Padres. Everybody calm down. But in general, the Padres have just been so good lately. 8-2 over their last 10 games. They really look like they're firing on all cylinders, and that's what's most exciting. Their starting pitching has been gangbusters. Their bullpen improved and great. The offense still kicking up. If you were worried about Jurickson Profar potentially slowing down, he has not slowed down, right? This guy has only just all the time and getting extra base hits, putting together good at bats. Love him very much. It's not going to change, guys. Profar is just going to do this. It's still wild to see. He's got a 156 WRC plus this year, but I don't think it's going to be that much different. At worst, he'll go down to 130, 140, you know what I mean? And bottom line, he's just going to be a great player who sometimes can hit cleanup, sometimes he hits leadoff. I actually don't mind him, by the way, as a leadoff hitter because I think that he's able to just put together productive at-bats as he has been his whole career. So that's really great. All in all, the only thing that you're hoping from this Padres team is the pitching. This Musgrove start will be huge. I am telling you guys, pay attention to the velocity. Will he touch 96 again? I saw that in some of his rehab starts he was. If he does touch 96, that shows you that he's getting the velocity back. He's a little bit more in control. You need it. And if they come back, if they get Joe Musgrove back and he's not effective, then they really have to hope that they have something with Martin Perez. And if they don't, then that is just not a good sign for the Padres in terms of how far they can go in the postseason, although I still like Cease, King, Waldron as the 3 starters. They need something. They cannot go into the postseason and be like, we have to use a Randy Vasquez or something like that, right? So we'll see. Or maybe it wouldn't surprise me if the Padres are like, you know what? We'll go Randy, and then we're just going to have him go 2 innings, right? Because maybe he's best suited for a bullpen role anyway. And then you just make the rest of the bullpen game. I wouldn't be shocked to see that, guys, but I think it depends on if Yu Darvish returns, who's still, I've not seen any update on him. Only wishing the best for the guy, obviously, as he is dealing with whatever personal matter it is. And also, I really don't like some of the comments I've seen from people, and I understand you're always going to get these troglodyte people out there that are just completely behind the times, that are just saying, why isn't he returning? This is ridiculous. Look, Yu Darvish, first of all, I could get down a whole soapbox of just like, you should always be rooting for your fellow man if needed. And yes, Darvish is a lot more privileged. He's rich. He's got a lot of money. He's a professional baseball player. I get it. Not everybody can just take off when certain things happen in their lives. I understand that. But you should still be rooting for him, and you should be wishing him the best. That comes first, and it should always come first. You know what I mean? You should never make it and allow it that we live in a world where the job is more important than your life. That's not good, and that's what a lot of forces want you to think, and that's not a good sign, right? You should never kind of slant that direction. And also, if you don't care about me and my, unambiguously political kind of slant that I'm making there, then look at it this way. This dude is a freak of nature. This is a dude with an incredible work ethic. He works hard. That's what they say. I know people who have seen this guy at Driveline, at all these different pitching facilities that are like, this dude is a absolute workhorse. For him to take off, that means like, give him his space, man. It means a lot. But yeah, that's me kind of BSing for the last segment of this podcast. The vibes are great, basically, for the Padres right now. And the fact that they don't have to play any crazy teams, they don't have a crazy schedule, is even more in favor of the Padres vibes. I'm most afraid of the Colorado Rockies in a couple weeks. I'm really scared about that. And then the real interesting part kicks off later at the end of the month when they have a 4-game set against the Mets and a 4-game set against the Cardinals. So that's going to be the biggest thing. That might determine places in the wild card matchups and who exactly the Padres play round one. Although, frankly, I don't care who they play round one. If they played someone, I just want them in the playoffs. That's what matters most. And getting that number one wild card spot would be money. I would very much appreciate that. You know why? I wouldn't mind facing the Brewers. You think I'm scared of the Brewers? You think I'm scared of that team? You know dang well I ain't scared of the Brewers if that's the first round matchup. Dodgers, not really scared of them either in the postseason. Phillies, yes, I'm very scared of the Phillies when it comes to the postseason, but I would love to play the Brewers as the round one team. That's 2-1 Padres easy. I'm telling you. Y'all know I'm a hater, but whatever. With that all being said, though, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. I will be better prepared and have more things to talk about. Tomorrow's game will be recapped, and also we will be talking a little bit about some listener sort of questions and comments that we got, potentially. But until that next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.